Better Man is directed by the same person who did The Greatest Showman. And I'm so excited to talk about this movie because I caught one of the later showings right before it kind of came out of theaters. It has not made a lot at the box office, and I understand that. And that totally disheartens me just a little bit because this movie's fantastic. Holy cow, this movie's great. This movie is one of the best movies I've seen in quite a long time, actually. I didn't expect it. I saw the trailer and I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. I don't know much about Robbie Williams, but he's having himself portrayed by a CGI ape, and I think that's interesting. And one of the songs from the trailer was pretty catchy. And I'm happy to say it was well worth that chance. I was even by myself in the theater. I was having a great time. We usually like to break reviews down in about 5 categories, and that goes the performances, the story, the music, the visuals, and the impact. So I'm going to go through them as quickly as I can because I don't want this to be a super long video. I just want to get this across to you that you need to go see this film. It is so good. For the first category, the performances, it's pretty great. Robbie does a great job as himself. I don't really even know if he did the motion capture for it, but for sure he did the voice, and he really sells it. The way he knows himself better than just about anybody else would, of course. And because of that, he's able to evoke the right emotions in the lines that he's been given, especially for his own story. And it doesn't adhere to standard musical biopic type tropes. And I think that his story is so interesting because I know a lot of these stories are like, oh, fame isn't everything. And that's certainly a huge theme in here. But the layers in which that story is told through the performances is amazing. Whether it's him, his family, the person who plays his father, the people that he's in his boy band with, everybody does such a stellar job. And he's absolutely his own standout in his own film because the focus is on him and he does well with that screen time, even though it's a little bit long. The story is one of my favorite things in here. Of course, I just mentioned the fact that it kind of does that, well, fame isn't everything type story, but the way that the whole thing is told and through the lens of who it's told by, the person I didn't really care much about, I ended up caring for him a whole lot because it goes through how he was just kind of this downtrodden kid. His dad is kind of in and out. His dad, wants to be a great singer. He looks up to like Frank Sinatra and these other great icons. And Robbie just wants to be enough. He wants to be up there. He wants his father to approve of him. He wants to be one of the greats. And seeing him go from him as a kid, as a goofy little kid, to growing up, he's causing trouble. He gets he's to take part in a boy band, and that goes through a whole up and down sort of thing. And getting to the end of his career is such a beautiful journey that's so interesting to follow. And the characters that he meets, the people he interacts with, it's all just so enthralling. And not only that, but with the transitions from each segment of his life is so clean. And even though it's a longer film, I was engaged through the majority of it, if not all of it, because it was just that appealing. And there's some more stuff I want to get into. I can't talk about that stuff too much. I'm going to get into the other categories too quick. The music, another great piece in here. Probably the best piece. The music in here is stellar. I was not familiar with a lot of his work, and I really wish that I would have been. There was one song that I was sort of familiar with, which was Rock DJ, and that scene's great, and the choreography is insane, and there's so much put into this movie, and I'm so sad that it didn't make much of the box office, and that a lot of people, don't really want to go see this film because he wasn't super popular in the US, and I get that, but not just that the music is really good, but that the visuals that they pair alongside with it is just as good. And Rock DJ is super good, but one of the most enthralling scenes I don't think I'll ever forget is closer to the end of the movie with Let Me Entertain You. No spoilers, but the way they portray certain things that's happening with Robbie at that time is beyond a lot of things I've ever seen. It is absolutely great. Just stellar. There's a couple songs in here that don't quite hit, or they drag on just a little bit too long but for the most part, I would say that like 80% of the songs on the album are really good. But the standouts, of course, are rock DJ, Angels, Let Me Entertain You, and Better Man. Just such great songs. The visuals. He's played by an ape. Pretty self-explanatory, very weird, very wacky, and I'm into it because it's fun. It's new, it's fresh, it's original, and it doesn't detract from the story. It's not too distracting. It really, the way they did the motion capture and the way they did everything looks so well, it almost flows flawlessly into the story, as if you actually start to believe that if you were to meet him in real life, that's what he would look like. Of course he doesn't, but it does such a good job of really pulling you in to how he views himself. And it's done so masterfully. It's just great. I mean, there's not a single category in here that I don't think is bad. The impact. Now, the impact is the one that's a little bit troublesome because I think personally, I will rewatch this movie. I want to go and rewatch this movie. It is great. And the ability to rewatch a film really impacts its score for me. And so for me, I'll definitely rewatch it. However, I don't know if this is for everybody. If you're not into musicals, this has a lot of stuff that you might like in here, but it may not win you over, especially since it's songs that are not current or popular in the US or ever really were. So that's a little tough. And obviously, it didn't make much of the box office. It's still not. And I think that really definitely affects it because it's clearly not drawing enough attention around here, or even globally, to be able to, warrant its huge budget, which I think was $110 million. And I don't think they're going to get close to hitting it, but they've talked about doing a sequel, or at least Robbie says that there are more stories to tell. And I think that's great. And I support that. I just am a little disheartened because I don't think this is going to get the outreach that it deserves. And I think that part of that is because it's such a niche story to tell. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a score. I'm going to give it a 9. I thought about 9.5, but I think given stuff with a couple of the songs and the story's just a tad bit too long, I think that drags it down just a little bit. But overall, I think it's a great film. Please go see it. Please go watch it. I think it's an important film. There's a lot of good messages in here. It's rated R. It's not for kids. Don't take your kids to go see this. But it is such an outstanding film, I think, from pretty much start to finish, with like maybe a couple very minor hiccups. The ride is more than worth it. And I keep thinking about it. I keep listening to the music. It's just that good. So thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, have a good one.